heck? What the heck? What the heck? Why is there no sound? Silly me. I accidentally turned my microphone off, and that's why. But thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's start from the top since you couldn't hear me. Hope everybody's doing good out there in TV land. But subscribe, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. I need the engagement. I appreciate you, Tosh, for letting it be known they couldn't hear me. And yeah, let's get into it. So, Eagles coming off of a Super Bowl victory. Typically, when you win the Super Bowl, you lose some players that helped you win the Super Bowl. In the end, I expect them to lose. They've already cut Darius Slay. I expect them to lose like a Josh Sweat. I forget the D tackle's name that balled out in the Super Bowl too. But there's talks about them replacing those lost players and bringing in a Myles Garrett, who alone is worth 3 players in itself. 29 years old, still in his prime, still got a good 3 to 4 years left of really good football. Coming in, I think he's about 12. He's pretty much guaranteed 12 to 15 sacks a year. And I feel like the question, is it fair? And if they're able to get him, man, on a team that already just got Saquon, you got Smitty, you got AJ Brown, you got Kenyon Marshall, or not Kenyon Mitchell, Jalen Carter, and then you bring in a Myles Garrett. At some point, man, like, what's going on here? And I feel like this is one of those things where this is not what this was meant for. It'll be, I'd hate to see it from a competitive standpoint. I'd be happy for Myles Garrett. I think he's been one of the best. I've said that he was the best edge rusher in all of football. And so I do think that he would give them something that they've pretty much haven't had in a really long time, since maybe like Reggie White in the 80s. But Myles Garrett to the Eagles would be a cheat code. That man could play all over the D line. 6'5", 280, 290, has a 40-inch vertical. Like, bro, what are we doing here? There's a cheat code in all of that. And so I hope it doesn't happen, because I don't think it's quite fair. And so Deebo Samuels was traded to the Commanders for a 5th-round pick, regardless of what you feel like, what they should have got. I really just thought that they were trying to unload that contract. You lose Brandon Ayuk late in the season. Not sure when he comes back. Christian McCaffrey steady injured. Trent Williams getting older, doesn't have too much football left in him. But does Deebo Samuels to the Washington Commanders make them a contender? They already got to the NFC Championship game without him. But I feel like it was more so a culmination of like the perfect matchups. So I do think that when you already have Jalen Daniels, you got Brian Robinson, you got um, Scary Terry McLaurin. I think from an offensive standpoint, we're bringing in someone like a Debo Samuels who doesn't have to walk in and be the guy because he's pretty much just a gadget guy. Honestly, he's going to be somebody that's going to line up in the slot. He's not going to be your number one receiver. At this point, you don't really want to put too much punishment on his body when it comes to lining him up at running back position. But Cliff Kingsbury, and the offensive coordinator that he is, and the play caller that he is, the offense he designs, I think they'll be able to squeeze a lot of juice out of that orange from a standpoint of the same way that Kyle Shanahan was able to. So I do think that this is an added asset. I don't know if it's the end all be all because of pretty much since he had his all pro season, he really hasn't been able to get back to that. But I do think that given what he can do from a yak standpoint, playmaking, and then just being another weapon for Jaden Daniels, I think that it's gonna. I still think in the end the Eagles will still be the best team in that division, but with this move, I don't see why they can't be the number two. I really think that they're the ones that should go after Myles Garrett, to be honest with you. And so it's been a while since we talked about Travis Hunter. Him and his girl have stayed out of the limelight. Now the NFL Combine just wrapped up, and I will be talking about winners and losers later in the show. But from the standpoint of during his press conference, he talked about him just being different. I'm built different. He said some other things where he talked about he compared himself to Otani from the Dodgers, who is probably a top 5 pitcher, top 5 hitter over the last couple of years, and said that his job is harder. Now, whether or not you would disagree or agree, I'm not going to get into all of that. But I do think that the conversation of him being a number one pick, given the teams that are in the top 5, as well as the quarterbacks, as much as I do like Shador, and I do think Shador will be very successful in the NFL, I get it. He doesn't have a crazy arm or crazy athleticism or something that would make him a number one pick. I just think that he's the best quarterback. And even like Cam Ward, if you think Cam Ward's the guy, he's like a rocket of an arm, but he has too much of that Caleb Williams in him where watching Caleb Williams struggle last year, would you take him at number one? And so I think with Travis Hunter, what he's able to do, even if he only does it for a short period of time, I feel like when you get or you do it only does it for so long or so much. When he played over 700 snaps on offense and over 700 snaps on defense. Now, if you go through an 18-game or 17-game season, I don't really want to see him take that many snaps on both sides per game. But I do think you give him maybe 50 snaps on defense and 20 snaps on offense. And I think in the end, thank you. In the end, I do think that it's one of those things where you're pretty much fulfilling 2 positions with 1 draft pick. You're able to get a corner who could be a slot, chase a number 1 sweet receiver. You're also getting someone that can return kicks. You're getting someone that can play in the slot and be a major playmaker from an offensive standpoint. Now, whether or not how many snaps that ends up being within the totality of the game, that's another thing in itself. But I do think that in the end, even if you do it for a 4 to 5 year period, or as long as he can withstand it, because he is a little small in frame. I think he came in weighing only like 175, maybe 180 at the combine if he did do the measurables. But I think that given the skill set that he has, the ability to, as a receiver, play on the defensive side of the ball, but create turnovers, you got to be able to use that to your advantage. And there's no reason why someone like a Brian Daboll, who can't come in and make it where and use Travis Hunter's as ability. Now, whether or not they end up taking that quarterback position, I think that Travis Hunter in this particular draft, there's no reason why he couldn't be the number one pick. I just feel like the way that the NFL works, if it's not quarterback, then the next thing after that is edge rusher. So I just don't see him being the number one pick, but he has all of the talent to be the number one pick. And thank you all for watching. While you're here, subscribe, follow, like, comment. Let me know what you think of the show. Ask questions. I'll even answer them on the screen. And so I talked about the combine. We got the winners and losers. It's about that time. So starting off with the first winner, Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss. I feel like he pretty much put his stamp on it that he is QB3 behind Shedeur and Cam Ward, whichever way that you have them on that list. I feel like neither one of them are no less than 2. So Jackson Dart is definitely that QB3, accurate in the intermediate. Doesn't really have the strongest arm, but I feel like in the combine he solidified himself as QB3. And my guy, and I talked about it before during the season, I'm not a huge fan. I really, if he's taken before the 4th round, I really feel like you're reaching. I feel like he has decent athleticism, but he didn't really help himself at the combine. And this is one of those things where we started to have this conversation of why players choose not to work out at the combine or choose not to throw at the combine, because he looked inaccurate, especially when it came to throwing the ball deep down the field. I feel like he didn't really help himself be able to increase his stop, where he only hurt himself. But he also didn't run a 40 time either, which is really one of the things that is his asset, is the athleticism, being able to create outside of the pocket. Now, he did have a stretch of 4 games where he threw for well over 1,200 yards, beating Texas, beating Penn State, beating Oregon. I feel like in the end, he showed that there's something there, but he didn't help himself. He's definitely a loser on the losing side of the NFL Combine. And so the winners, we got Travion Henderson and Quentin Judkins. And I really just feel like the running back position as a whole are winners in this. It's Kenshawn Judkins. I definitely spelled that wrong. I do apologize, sir, for spelling your name wrong. I'm going to get it right. But I do feel like the running back position as a whole did their job. This class this year is going to end up being a much deeper class than last year. I feel like you'll be able to get Amari, you can get Travion Henderson, Judkins, you can get Ashton Genty, you can get Cam Scatterbo. There's like 6 to 7 running backs that could end up being starters in the NFL, and high quality starters too. Even possibly go for 1,000 yards their first year. Where I feel like last year the strong position was the wide receiver position. This year is your opportunity to get a running back. I've seen some mock drafts where they got the Raiders drafting Ashton Genty, and I'm like, bro, if Shedeur slides that far, the Raiders are taking Shedeur. Ain't no doubt about it. But in the end, there is an opportunity for them to get a running back, someone to replace Josh Jacobs. We've missed him dearly in the 2nd and 3rd round. And so I feel like the running back position as a whole, but specifically the Ohio State running backs, good size, measured out at 6 foot, 218, where Travion Henderson measured out at 5'10", 220. Both of them ran 4.4s, sub 4.4s. And so I feel like the running back position is in good hands in this draft. And Saquon and Derrick Henry showed that what it is. Even Josh Jacobs has showed this year what it is to have a good running back, how important that is to an offense. And so a loser at the combine this year, Isaiah Bond, wide receiver from Texas. The thing about it when it comes to this one, it wasn't necessarily like a loser. He's not a loser as a whole. But when you come out and you talk trash to your former teammate, Xavier Worthy, saying you're going to beat his 40 time who ran a 4.21, and then you come out and you run a 4.39, yeah, it's just not a good look. It doesn't look good for you, my boy. You got to sit this one out. And so this is why he has to hold his hill. Isaiah Bond did run a 4.39, which is nothing to snooze at. Fast as hell, or way faster than I can ever run. But when you come out and you give this expectation that you're going to run a sub 4.2, 4.1, and then you run a 4.39, yeah, you got to hold that L, my boy. And so my last winner, I got Shamar Stewart, edge rusher from Texas A&M. He's one of the people I said to look out for going into this draft. I felt like he has all of the measurables, 6'5", 270. He ran a 4.6, 40-inch vertical, crazy athleticism from top to bottom. But the production on the field is where it truly is the thing that's really holding him back. 4.5 sacks over the last 2 years from an edge rusher that could be a first-round grade is one of the things that if he didn't come out and show out from an athletic standpoint, that's the only real thing saving grace for his draft stock. And so I feel like he did exactly what he needed to do, what he had to do. Crazy measurable, 6'5", 270, running a 4.6 is wild. But coming off that edge, depending on where he goes, but if he can go to someone like the LA Chargers where they have Bosa and learn behind some guys that really are able to get after the quarterback, learn technique, he can be a hell of a football player. And so my last loser when it comes to the combine, Malachi Starks. Going into this, it was between him and I think it was Nick. Hold up, let's look it up. I think it's Nick. Yeah, Nick Emenwari, 6'3", 220, safety, ran a 4.4. If I think he ran a 4.38, had a 43-inch vertical and almost an 11.5 broad jump. If you took Cam Chancellor's body and put Derwin James' athleticism, this is pretty much the type of player that you're getting. Now, I haven't really got into an opportunity to really dive deep into the film and see how he played on the field, but he was an All-American all around. He was an SEC, All-SEC safety. With this crazy combine that he had, there's no reason why he can't end up being a first-round pick and should be safety number one. And part of it is because Malachi Starks going into this, he was the one battling, but he ran a slow 40 time as a 4.5 40 time, not the fastest, given that you're supposed to play safety, and a 33-inch vertical, not real athleticism to be able to cover deep. And so this is one of those things where if he plays more of a box safety position, then that speed and athleticism from a vertical standpoint isn't necessarily like an end-all be-all. But if he's supposed to be a sideline to sideline single high safety with a 4.5 as opposed to Nick Emenwari's 4.38, that is going to it's going to change the trajectory of their careers and where certain players end up getting drafted. And so if you've seen the Tank and Roach fight over the weekend, it's a lot of hoopla right now going about the knockdown. Was it a knockdown? Should have been ruled a knockdown. It definitely should have been ruled a knockdown. But the question here is, was Roach robbed? And me personally, I'm gonna say no. I grew up watching boxing. I always would hear, in order to take the belt from someone, you got to beat the champ. If you go and you look at how they looked at the beginning of the fight and how they looked at the end of the fight, no one looked more beat up than the other. Then when you go and you watch the duration of the fight, Tank wins the first 3 to 4 rounds. Roach wins the last 3 to 4 rounds. In that middle part, no one really, and then even throughout the fight, no one really had real control over the fight. Even in there are certain exchanges where certain people were winning a little bit more, had a little bit more momentum. They were exchanging punches, jabs for crosses, one punch to the body, one counter punch here, and they just were going back and forth. So even with the knockdown, however you scored that round, Tank won the round just from fighting in the round. So then if you give them the knockdown and they go from there, like, I feel like in order to really beat the champ, you got to make him look bad to a certain degree and not leave it up to the judges. And I feel like that for me is why I'm not saying I don't think Roach won the fight. I felt like going into it, I had it being a draw. It was too close in my opinion, and I don't think that the knockdown, even if you had scored it a knockdown, so specifically they didn't even call it a knockdown. So it's even more of a reason why it should be a draw, if not go toward Tank and him getting the victory. Now, I am going to look at Tank crazy because of the way that the fight happened. You got to give him his rematch. Now, if you fight someone else and then go back into it because of the way that the fight happened, fight someone else, get your confidence back up, get back into it, I don't have a problem with that. But if you don't fight him within the next year, I'm going to look at you crazy, Tank. So we got our fast break. Last little bit of show left. Just want to say Jordan Travis and the Jets draft Jordan Travis. He broke his ankle, dislocated his ankle with the hip drop tackle. That was the whole hoopla about that tackle being banned. But the Jets draft him, they rush him. He has a setback and then has to miss his entire rookie season. And it's one of those things where a bad organization can ruin your career. And you see it all the time where, like, Jaden Daniels going to the Commanders and the position and the way that the organization set him up, and then the way that the Bears set up Caleb Williams is an example of that. When you go into it and you see Jaden Daniels gets Cliff Kingsbury, he has Scary Terry, Brian Robinson, Zach Ertz, a veteran presence, and a defense that's complementary to the team, where Jaden Daniels, he doesn't really have to do too much, but as you learn and get better throughout week to week, that's when you can start to really show out. And I think that when you look at Caleb Williams, they had a defensive coach, the offensive coordinator was terrible. They did do a lot getting him weapons. You have 3 bona fide wide receivers. They draft Rome Odunze. They bring in Keenan Allen. They re-sign DJ Moore. They bring in DeAndre Swift. Roshan Johnson is still there. And they have weapons. Cole Kmet, plenty of weapons. But when you don't have the play caller or offensive mind to go along with that, you see how it took a while for Caleb Williams to hit a stride. When he finally did, it was too late. So he had a decent rookie season, but this is the difference between you being an MVP conversation and people question whether or not you were a bust. And so Shai Gilgeous-Alexander fired his agents, will be representing himself. He's going into a year coming off of an all-star berth, leading his team, number 1 record in the West. MVP talks, should win the MVP after, in my personal opinion, I feel like he was snubbed last year. But he's going into a supermax contract negotiation, saves $12 million by firing his agents. And the question is, can you blame him? And hell no. If I could keep $1,200 in my pocket and negotiate a contract, because at the end of the day, I know you gotta pay me because Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, since he's been with the Thunder, has been started off, I think his first year with Chris Paul. I think he was I would have definitely argued he was a top 20 player from that year. Over the last 2 to 3 years, he's been a top 5, if not working his way to being the best player. I think he's the most well-rounded player. Ability to get to the free throw line, three-point shooting, mid-range, post, defense, playing passing lanes, leadership. I feel like he's doing everything that would make him the best player on his team, if not best player in the league. And he very well could be a person that could be the face of the league. And so in the end, I don't blame him. You're going to have to give him his bread. So if I can make an extra $12 million just by firing my agent and negotiating my deal on my own, when you really don't have a real leg to stand on, I have all the leverage. And I'm sure he has resources, people he can call, a lawyer. Maybe he throws some money to a lawyer to read the contract for him, just so he can know the nuances and certain verbiage. But I don't blame him. If I can keep that 12 million, I'm gonna do it. And so there's been this conversation. Anthony Edwards said he doesn't want to be the face of the league. Then he has some things going on outside of the realm of the sport, on the court. There's this rumor floating around right now about him giving up his rights to a child, where he very much vocalized that he did not want the child. That's a negative thing to talk about when it comes to a player of the face of the league. When you think about the players that have been the face of the leagues, the Kobe's, the Magic Johnsons, the Michael Jordans, LeBron James, there's not too many negative things. Like Magic Johnson had the thing with the HIV, and then he retired. Next thing you know, here's Mike. Mike was already here. Now Mike is the face of the league. Mike, only real negative thing about him was his gambling addiction. Then Kobe, once Kobe dealt with the rape case, that was squashed. Then Kobe became the face of the league. Then LeBron really you don't hear nothing until recently, Drake trying to be a snitch and be like, oh, well, LeBron been smashing white women on the side even though he's married. But when it comes to the face of the league, there really is you got to be a little bit more squeaky clean, a little bit more stable when it comes to relationship wise. And which leads me to the question, should Jason Tatum be the face of the NBA? He's American, 6-time All-NBA, 6-time All-Star, multiple Eastern Conference Finals, multiple All-Star appearances, been to 2 NBA Finals, finally got the ring last year, has the relationship with LMA. I believe they have a baby on the way if the baby has not been born yet. So it just looks like he has all of the, doesn't really get in any kind of trouble in commercials. So for me, I think that he should. I do think that there's a little bit of slight disrespect to Jason Tatum that he gets. And I think that the quality of team that he's been able to be a part of since he came into the league, like right from the jump, you were on a team that had Jaylen Brown, Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, and eventually you get Al Horford. Then they get rid of Kyrie. Kyrie gets hurt. Terry Rozier balls out. So now you even got Terry Rozier, and that comes into the fold. Then eventually you have these moments. You dunk on LeBron. Y'all lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. Cleveland goes on to the finals. Then you have the moment in the bubble where you go up against the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. You lose again. The Heat go to the finals. Then they finally break through lose to the Warriors, doesn't play well, but he's just getting better and getting better and getting better. Eventually, he's gonna get an MVP. He's a two-way player, clutch shooter. Now, I do disagree with some of his shot choices, which is why I prefer Jaylen Brown. But between the two, if I had to pick someone, Jason Tatum is a better basketball player than Jaylen Brown. But I just feel like he has more natural gifts, where Jaylen Brown, I feel like he is worked his way to where he's a really good player, but he doesn't have the natural gifts that Jason Tatum has. And so I do think that Jason Tatum should be the face of the league. And I feel like he has the full package to be that. American, has a stable relationship, cute kids, the accolades, all NBAs, all-star games, defensive team, Eastern Conference appearances, won a ring, could possibly win back-to-back rings this year with how good that team is. And I just feel like, yeah, he should be the face of the league. And so last but not least, y'all know how much I love Charles Barkley. But as I'm getting older and I realize some of the things that he says and does, like the Philadelphia Eagles decided they're not going to go to the White House from what I've heard. Charles Barkley comes out and says that people need to respect the president. And I get that. I do think that the president is a position of that is granted an owed respect. But the thing that I hate is this isn't just a thing of left versus right, Democrats versus Republicans. When a person comes out and is blatantly racist, this isn't just me disagreeing. I'm a black man. You're doing things that negatively affect me and my people as a black people. Yeah, I'm not going to go support you, and I'm not going to you don't deserve my respect. So, Chuck, respectfully, kill that noise. Ain't nobody trying to hear that shit. You've been very outspoken over the years. I hate when, to a certain degree, when people get older, when they were wild, when they were younger, they get older and forget how they were when they were younger. It very much irks the hell out of me. But, Chuck, kill that noise. This isn't just a simple, the president, I disagree with his views. No, that man is racist. And he's blatantly racist, hypocritical, and a predator. And he's a felon, like, on top of that. So, like, no, I'm not, if I win a championship, I'm not going to go see him. I don't blame the Eagles, and actually shout out to them for saying fuck you. But I appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe on Juke Network. Follow me on Twitch if you haven't already. Follow us at Juke Network on Facebook. I'm trying to take everything over from the He Say, She Say channel. So if you're on the He Say, She Say channel, go on over to Juke Network. Follow that page so I can get everything over. And you can follow us at JUK Juke Sports Show on Instagram. And you can follow me at KYNGRALPH on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, @_for X or Twitter. And me and my straw hat, we're going to get up out of here.